7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Welcome into another edition of the Vegas Squares podcast, and here in the virtual Zoom studio, we've got Spike, we've got Token Tony, and we've got hockey talk as we have for the last few podcasts because we are right in the thick of the NHL bubble. I know that the NBA playoffs are starting soon, but I don't believe anyone on this panel really gives a shit. So see, he's already ready to move me on. You're not ready? You're not ready for the NHL or NBA playoffs, buddy?
The only reason I would even pay attention in the slightest to the NBA playoffs is because my father is going to pay attention to it. So when I talk to him, it's nice to know what I'm talking about, but otherwise I couldn't give a fuck less. I assume the Celtics are in it, but I don't actually know.
I believe they are. I think they're one of the better teams, but who knows? The only thing that would make me tune into the playoffs is if Michael Jordan somehow came back and was in like 95 form. And even then I might probably channel surf while he's playing.
That's fair.
That's gross.
I'd
probably do the same.
I've been flipping to the WNBA a little bit while the Aces are on, but that's about as close as I get to basketball action these days.
Oh my God. Enough. I feel like I would rather tune into like a channel that just has you watch paint dry.
Bob Ross.
No, it's not bad. My favorite player is out though. She got injured in the preseason Achilles injury, so she's out for the season.
Oh, who's that? Because I know. Because I totally know who she is.
Yeah.
My favorite player too.
It's Plum, Chelsea Plum, and then by Kayla McBride and Asia Wilson.
Kelsey Plum?
Kelsey Plum. What did I say?
Don't even know your favorite players.
It's Plum. All I know is that she's short, and I like the short players on the team.
There you go.
But you got Carolyn Swords, who's like 6'4" or something ridiculous like that. Just kind of terrorizing people. She's like the Shaq of the WNBA right now.
Whatever happened to the one chick from Baylor?
I know who you're talking about. She was playing in China.
She was super tall too.
Yeah, I know exactly who you mean. She was playing in China because the Chinese women's league pays a lot more than the WNBA, or at least it did at the time. But I don't know.
All right, we got off topic here, but I was kind of curious about the WNBA. Not. All right, well, as you know, hockey playoffs are in full swing. We're in pretty much the middle of the first round of the NHL playoffs here, and a bombshell of a story has come down this morning as of when we were recording this, because obviously we air at 10 o'clock Eastern on Saturday nights. So we record this in the morning, but TUUKKA RASK has opted out of the playoffs and has left the team. I mean, I don't know exactly when he, notified the team, but the Bruins just played a game. I mean, they literally just played a game. So between last night and 9 o'clock Pacific time this morning, I don't want to say TUUKKA quit on his team, but TUUKKA left in the middle of a playoff run where the Bruins, despite the poor round robin showing, are still favorites in this. And it's just, to me, it strikes me as, I don't want to say it's not, I don't know. I want to hear your guys' opinion on this first, because I'm still kind of processing all the information and, reading social media, just to see the polarization on both sides over this has been an interesting one, to say the least. I kind of probably fall right in the middle, but I want to hear your guys' take on this. Spike, you're the Bruins fan through and through. And this affects, of the three of us, this affects you the most, especially, again, for a team that did go to the Stanley Cup final last year. Unfortunately, did not win the Stanley Cup. But, again, they had expectations of doing the same thing this year as well. And now that probably takes a hit with their superstar goalie opting out of the season.
Yeah, so he's saying that he's leaving for family reasons, but that is so vague that I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if that means that he doesn't like being in the bubble, or that he misses his family, or that one of his kids is sick, or, any number of things. It was telling the other day when he gave the interview and said that playing in the empty arenas like this doesn't feel like a playoff mentality or a playoff atmosphere.
Well, he's not the first guy to say that either.
No, but I mean, you could tell, like, based on that, and now him quitting, you could tell that he was never into this and into this postseason. So it's really kind of strange. I think in the next couple of days, we'll probably hear from either him or the team about something specific, whether it be like, his wife's dad caught COVID and therefore they had to go somewhere to, I don't know, something along those lines. That's the kind of thing to me that makes sense, because, if you're telling me, yes, I have to leave friends and family behind for 2 months, but all I'm going to be doing is hanging out with teammates and playing hockey for 2 months, that sounds like paradise. I don't know.
And getting paid handsomely for it.
Yeah, I don't understand how this is an issue for these players. So I don't. Maybe TUUKKA's just a different guy, like a different mentality, different mindset. But very, very strange. Fortunately, the Bruins do have a very capable backup in Jaroslav Halak. The backup behind him is questionable. I thought they would go with former Vegas Golden Knights legend Max Legacy, but they have instead decided to go with some guy whose name I forget, who's never actually appeared in an NHL game before. So
that might still be the good move.
Yeah, it might be. Legacy did not overly impress 2 years ago with Vegas, but he did go 6-7-1 as the fourth or fifth stringer, depending on who you ask.
It looks like Dan Vlader is
Vlader, yeah, that's it.
6'6" goalie. That's huge.
Yeah, and he's only 22, so he's got a high ceiling. But it's bizarre that he would get picked over somebody that actually has NHL experience. But
yeah, I think they're hoping that Halak plays through them.
Yeah, that's always the hope for every team going into the playoffs. You never want to have to rely on a backup. But if anybody can, it's Boston. So, and they proved it today. They played a good game today. Halak made one gigantic mistake that led to the only Carolina goal. Otherwise, he was perfect. So, good game. And, let's hope that this wasn't just a one game, everybody amped themselves up to kind of cover Halak because Rask was out. Let's hope that this carries through. It fucks up two of my bets because I have Carolina to win the series and a parlay with Carolina winning the series. But for the most part, I think the Bruins played well and they showed what they can do when they get their act together.
Well, the series isn't over yet. You're only down 2-1 in that spot for that bet. But
correct.
I mean, Token, look, as long as the employer is okay with it, which I don't know if they are or aren't because they really haven't given a statement on their belief of the situation.
Yes, they have.
Oh, they have. I must have missed it. Please enlighten me.
The Bruins said that they fully support and understand Rask going home, and they have no problem with it.
Well, they have they have to do that. You would imagine, unless they're the Mets. The Mets are the only team dumb enough
to screw that up. Yeah, maybe the Jets. Maybe the Jets as well, though.
Yeah, maybe it's Boston teams don't screw that up. Maybe New York teams do. Okay. Yeah. Well, what I mean is that. Okay, I guess after we find out what is in the court of public opinion, what would be an acceptable reason for him leaving? Like, in my opinion, personally, when Spike says, his wife's father got COVID, I don't know if that's necessarily close enough. I know it's close to his wife, and I don't know their relationship, but I don't know if that's close enough to leave the bubble. And two, like, what would be the closest person other than his wife and kids to you to say, okay, this is when I need to leave and I'm going to be gone for the rest of the playoffs? I feel like if it's a COVID issue, I mean, we're talking 2 weeks. Normally most people get over it and he could be back. He's saying he's done for the postseason. Something about that doesn't scream COVID to me. Something about that seems something maybe along two different roads, something along a family issue, like, marital problems, or a kid's sick in a different way, or something about that says mental health to me.
Me personally, I remember reading an article probably about a month ago, right before the restart happened, and he was on the physically like underperforming list. And I wonder if like just back right now, he's not feeling 100% or even close to 100% enough to even make a deep run in the playoffs. So he's going to let that slide right now, and hopefully he does better. I mean, it's either that or I'm guessing somebody in the immediate family. I would even extend it to the father and mother-in-law has something like very dire situation. So,
and again, and I can respect that. And like I said, I don't know, everybody's family situation is different. You know, if I'm sitting here, I have a contract that, you know, says I need to play, you know, I'm going to do this in this bubble. I can't leave. You know, I had a month plus to decide on whether I was going to. And again, certain things happen, a death of a family, the birth of the child. Lars Eller left the bubble for the birth of his child, although he couldn't see the child because of COVID related issues. He couldn't see the birth, excuse me. But anyways, I don't know. To me, again, we all operate differently. I don't know if that's close enough for me. Again, it's probably closer for him, and that's okay. That's fine. But again, Spike, till the end of the playoffs, that doesn't scream my father-in-law has COVID. I'm not saying that's the case, but to the end of the playoffs, this seems to me, and a full disclosure, I've said this on a couple podcasts. I'm unemployed. I've been unemployed since March. And I've thought about the prospect of going back to work and being like, oh my God, I wish I wasn't working. Because I sit here right now and I'm like, I'm ready to go back to work. But I know the first couple of days I go back to work, I'm like, God, I want to go back on vacation again. And I would hope that's not the case for TUUKKA RASK, because he is getting paid an exorbitant amount of money and he's playing a game. But something just doesn't seem right for the length of time. Something doesn't seem COVID related for the length of time he has decided to sit out for the remainder of the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's fair. And like I said, I mean, everything that I was saying is pure speculation because,
of course, again, we don't know anything right now.
Yeah. So you're right. I mean, it could be that it is something more significant than a COVID-related illness. It could be family problem. Like it could be any number of things. But you know, it depends on what he determines to be more important than the game. Right. So if he decides that his father-in-law having COVID is important enough that he is going to leave the team, then that's what he's going to do.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Right, and it makes more sense that it would be something more significant, like a child with the illness more serious than COVID, or his wife saying, you can't be away for this long, I can't handle the kids, you know, come home, or, you know, the ultimatum, whatever. You know, so it could be any number of things. I don't know, but it's hard for us to sit here and say, how can somebody making millions of dollars playing a game opt out and not go to play? But for him, I mean, you know, he grew up in Finland, so he already has a different ethos and a different mentality. And being a hockey player in general, being a goalie makes you a fucking psychopath to begin with. So, like, all of these things combined, and he's just a different person with different priorities. And if that's what it takes, then, you know, if that's what he decides to do, then, you know, we just have to smile and nod and say, all right, Loch Ness Monster, get us to the final.
Yeah. And again, I 100% agree. Everybody has the decisions that they make, and the only person they owe an explanation to is the employer in this spot. And, but I mean, everything I've read, Boston fans, despite TUUKKA's success, really haven't embraced him like they did goalies of the past, Tim Thomas and others. Even though Thomas elected to sit out a year, I believe in 2012 or whatever.
Yeah.
How do you think we're going to get an explanation on why? I mean, again, whether we deserve the question of whether fans and media deserve an explanation is secondary. I'm asking, do you think they're going to get a truthful explanation as to why maybe the best goalie in the league has just stopped playing hockey?
I think they'll give a vague explanation, a little more in detail than this one that just came out, but I don't think it will be that deep of informative to the media and to the staff and the players and all. Well, maybe a little more in detail to the staff and the players.
Do you think the players got anything more or further? Because I mean,
I'm sure
your teammate, and you got to respect
Yeah.
him, and you understand. But you maybe want to know why, because again, if we're sitting here, if he's got a mental health issue that somehow he just has flipped a switch, and like you said, that previous quote of "it doesn't feel like a playoff atmosphere," that has to be a mental health issue. Because to be honest with you, again, we talk about this guy's making millions of dollars to play a game he's under contract and obligated to do. And if the thought of not having fans in the stands is what is preventing him from doing his job, to me, I would think the three of us would probably think that's a little bit weird or crazy. But there's got to be something deeper than him just being not motivated.
I'm sure there's deeper information, and whether we know the real cause of it or even close to the real cause of it, I'm not sure if we'll ever find that out. Because
let's not kid ourselves. I don't know about you guys, but I've sure used the family emergency to get out of things I don't want to do. I know this is a little different than just going to dinner with friends, but I mean, it's the easiest thing to do is to get out of something is to say, I have a family emergency. I mean, we don't know. I mean, if you want to go all the way to the conspiracy side, he could have gambling debts and the mob's looking for him. I mean, there's so many different things where he's got to just disappear. I mean, look at the urban legend of Michael retiring from basketball because he was up to his eyeballs in gambling debts, and people were being threatened, and eventually his father was murdered. And a lot of people believe that was because of said gambling debts and a lot of other different, things that he got himself into in the underworld. Again, that's not the first place I go, but it's just the family emergency tagline is usually the easiest way, Spike, to get out of doing something that either you don't want to do or you need to go into hiding.
Yeah, and I will say I do miss using that excuse because since the only family I have in the immediate area is my wife, it makes it a little difficult to say, oh, family emergency, I guess I have to get on a plane and leave for a week. Like, I don't know how else I'm supposed to get around that.
Yeah, it's
but you're right. It is a tough one. I would have to imagine that, I mean, there's obviously a bigger story behind this. There's obviously more to this than just family issues, family problems, or he wants to spend time, whatever the exact wording was, I forget. So
yeah, because the wanting to spend time with your family, he had an option to opt out, like unpunished. I don't want to say he's going to be punished for this, but I mean, there were players that opted out, and you were like, okay, moving on. They're afraid, because of the COVID situation, but he did it. I mean, we're almost a month into this. Yeah. And if it's the situation of he's scared of the COVID or he wants to spend time with his family, he should have done it a month ago.
Exactly.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the only thing that makes sense then is the only things that make sense would be either A, something actually came up while he was in the bubble, forcing him to leave, or B, he was in the bubble, realized he fucking hated it, and decided that he wanted to leave and use the family problems as an excuse. Yeah.
And again, like I said, if there is a COVID situation, with all due respect to his family, I mean, we're talking potentially a month and a half to 2 more months of playoffs. The COVID generally goes around a week, about 10 days to 14 days for most cases. I just don't see why he's literally extended it all the way to the end of the playoff if it is just a COVID related situation. And again, we don't know if it's COVID. He just said, like I said, the key word of this podcast basically has been family emergency. That could be anything.
Yeah. But the thing is, if it was something like that, would the NHL let him back in? If it was something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they've let people in for the birth of their child. I mean, he'd probably have to go through a quarantine phase. I mean, Lars Eller, I was watching the Caps and Islanders game last night. They were talking about Lars Eller, how he hasn't been able to practice with his team because he did come back and then was quarantined for 4 days of 4 days straight of negative COVID tests. So I would imagine there's some sort of protocol in place that if he was to come back, and the thing is he can change his mind and come back. Maybe this is a COVID situation, and and the father, or the kid or the wife, we don't know who it is. I mean, again,
Mhm.
we're not due an explanation. Obviously, we'd all love one. It's the reason why. I mean, we all want to know why people make unorthodox decisions. Let's put it that way, for lack of a better word. We all want to know, if somebody makes a decision in anything, business and life, in any kind of situation, we want to know what was the reasoning behind that, and then we get to determine if that was valid enough. I'm not here to try to determine whether it's valid enough. He's the one who ultimately has to live with the decision. I don't know how the pay works. That's all between him and the employer. I don't know if he gets paid for leaving, but I want an explanation. Whether I agree with it or not, it's like, again, it's his decision. But I think we're wanting more, because this is so out of the blue. I mean, again, I don't know exactly when the decision went down, but the game was at 9 o'clock Pacific time. The game literally just ended as we're recording here, and I woke up to catch the second and third periods, wondering why Halak was in, and then reading through social media that Rask was gone, like left the bubble. It was very strange. When strange things like this occur, we want to know why, as fans and as people. So it's just such a strange situation. And again, whatever he says, it's not up to me to decide if that's worthy enough. That's up to him and his employer. And again, they're the ones that have to live with that. And I guess his teammates would really be the collateral effect of that too.
Yeah.
So, how are you feeling about the Bruins now with Halak? I know you say he's a capable goalie, but he's not TUUKKA RASK.
He's not TUUKKA RASK. He's still good. I think the Bruins, they definitely stepped their game up today. Marchand finally got a goal, even though, empty netter, but still got a goal. Charlie Coyle has to play better. Without Pasternak, they had Anders Bjork on the top line today, who eventually got dropped to like the third line because he just wasn't producing, and he took 3 or 4 penalties, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think they can play well. And I always said, if the Bruins win 2 in a row, now if they win 2 in a row, they win the series. But if they win 2 in a row, watch out, because they can run the table. If they get their groove, if they find their step, they can really make a lot of noise in these playoffs. And one thing that's really going to determine how this series goes is on the other side, Svechnikov's injury. And if that's serious, if he can't come back, if they lose that weapon, then that's one less thing the Bruins have to worry about, which is good news for Boston, bad news for my sports betting balance. But I will take, on the happiness hedge, I will take the Bruins to win the series at that point.
Yeah, I was going to say, what means more to you sometimes in the grand scheme of betting plus fandom? Is it money, or is it your team? Like, I generally try not to bet against the team I'm rooting for, as a fan. I try not to bet against Tampa. I try not to bet against New England. Try not to bet against the Vegas Golden Knights. But every once in a while, you do see a spot. It's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to have action against a team I'm rooting for. I understand the happiness hedge thought. The only time I might do that is in a Super Bowl. Or a conference, or a Stanley Cup final, or the finals of whatever sport that happens to be that I'm watching. That might be the only spot, because I'm sure you don't want Boston to lose in this round, even though you do have your backup Vegas Golden Knights. I'm sure you're not actively rooting, but the fact that you have a ticket on it at plus money kind of gives you that, I understand, I get the happiness edge. I just don't know if I love it in the first round of the NHL postseason.
Yeah, it was just the round robin. The Bruins stunk so goddamn hard. I had no confidence in them playing anybody, to be perfectly frank.
And maybe that's why TUUKKA left.
Yeah, well, when I saw that it was Carolina, I became even less confident, because Carolina was looking real good, ending up with, the best of the play-in series ranks at that number 5 seed. So I couldn't see a scenario where Boston won, and they surprised me in that the first game they won. They surprised me today a little bit, and we have to see how the rest of the series goes. But 2-1 series lead is good news for Boston, I think.
So with Svechnikov's injury and all that, do you see Boston kind of wrapping this up here, or without TUUKKA, are they a little bit more in a dogfight now? Because this game was a dogfight too.
Yeah, no, I think it's still a dogfight. I think if Carolina figures out how to score without Svechnikov, again, assuming that the injury is serious enough to keep him out of the next game or two, then I could see this going 6 or 7. I don't know. If Carolina can't find that scoring touch without him, then Halak should be good enough to carry Boston into the next round.
Yeah, don't forget they've got another guy who's a young stud in Sebastian Aho who really needs to step up as well.
Sure.
And if he can step up and take the place of Svechnikov or step up and complement Svechnikov, you're right. Still in a dogfight, though.
Yeah, absolutely right with that. I mean, I do see this actually going to 7, and I think it might even go to overtime in Game 7. And
you were going to say it's going to go to 8. Just for some reason, I thought you were going to say something like that.
I'm not that retarded.
No, that's true. Let's play an even number of series games.
Best of 2. The one
go aggregated goal totals in order to determine who wins?
Total goals.
Away goals trumps.
Regulation overtime wins. ROW.
Yeah, I still think Boston will win, even if it does go to 7, and kind of struggle the next round, though. So,
all right, let's stay in the East. Let's talk about these series a little bit in Montreal and Philadelphia. I tell you what, we all talked about this could be the sweep or the gentleman's sweep. Even James A. Paxson when he was on as well. With all due respect to Philadelphia, I know the series is 1-1. They won the first game, but they've got 2 goals in this series total. And they got blanked by Montreal, who, again, I know, Spike, you keep talking about a team that's not supposed to be there, but they're definitely hanging with the boys here. I know this hurts you. I need you to say one positive thing about the Montreal Canadiens' current playoff roster or team. They're not the Maple Leafs.
I'll do 2. I'll do 2, but individual players. First, Nick Suzuki is proving that he should never have been traded to Montreal. Vegas should have held on to him. You build lines around players that good. He makes players around him better with his ability to dish the puck. Keeping him on a line with somebody like Stone and Pacioretty, or even with a guy like Tuck, like that is an unbelievable player. The Vegas.
How crazy is that the best option that the Knights might have for that draft, if you expand it all? I know that Suzuki turned into Pacioretty and this and that, and Eric Branstrom turned into Mark Stone. Mm-hmm. But the best piece that they're going to have remaining from that might be Nick Hague.
Yeah, altogether possible.
That plays for the Knights because Cody Glass might flame out. He hasn't been great.
Cody, made of glass, just cannot seem to stay on the ice because of his injuries. And that was a knock on him, is that he was tall, but he was kind of not frail, but he was thin. He didn't have the bulk.
A little fragile.
Muscle.
Well, Alex Tuck syndrome.
Yeah, so, but the difference is Alex Tuck actually plays hard and can make differences when he wants to turn it on. Glass hasn't shown that ability.
Not yet. You're correct.
He can put up points, he can score. We know that he has at least a little bit of a touch. But if Suzuki's running the first line in Montreal and Glass is relegated to a third line here in Vegas, we didn't win that trade.
And what's your second?
As good as Pacioretty might be, we're not going to win that trade if Suzuki ends up being a first liner, because that's the kind of guy, again, that you build a line around because he's that good.
And what was your second point?
I
have a point for the Canadiens, but I'll let you finish it.
I hate to say it, but he seems like a decent enough guy. Carey Price getting wins doesn't necessarily bother me all that much. I would rather see him win with another team.
He'll be in Seattle in a couple years.
That's what I thought too, and I was pretty adamant about it, but I looked at that contract that he has, and it's a full no movement clause, so he has to be protected by Montreal unless he ends up waiving it for whatever reason.
Well, Fleury waived his, if I correct.
That's true.
And Fleury might waive his again here if he's not playing in the rest of these postseason.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one, and we'll get to that when we talk about Chicago and VGK, but the thing I was going to say as positive for Montreal, and again, it's linking back to VGK, is I think VGK gave up on Tatar too quickly. And gave up too much to give up on him that fast, too.
Yeah, that is the point that bothers me more. He didn't seem to click with this offense for whatever reason. I don't know if they just needed to put different people around him to get him to work, but they gave up a lot to get him and then got nothing in return when they did give up on him. So I think you're right. I think that was another piece that probably should have stayed in Vegas, at least to give him another chance to either crack the roster or make an impact because, this just, I mean, but he did nothing his first year with us. It was bad.
Yeah, I felt like he was getting a lot of third line minutes, not really having like you said, the guys around him to make him successful. Because Token knows him. I mean, Tatar was a beast in Detroit. 20 goal seasons, 6 years in a row. 5 or 6 years in a row.
In my opinion, just Vegas wasn't the right fit for him, as well as the coaching wasn't able to fill him in a good situation or a good fit for him. And
I mean, I thought when he jumped up to the second line, when some of those guys got hurt sometimes, I thought he actually performed pretty well. Actually, he was one of the more one of my more favorite guys to watch play in Vegas. And like I said, unfortunately,
who doesn't like sauce?
Yeah, tartar sauce. Unfortunately, him and I think Tomas Hika, actually both of those guys, the Tomases, never really got a chance to shine here in Vegas.
Forgot about Hika.
I thought he did really well when he was given the opportunity. But anyways, we're talking about the Flyers here, Token. Again, the series is 1-1, but they've only scored 2 goals. They have not looked like the same team that was in the round robin. You can't put it all on Carter Hart. The defense was terrible in front of him. But we, Spike gave him all that praise before the series started. He hasn't been great, but again, it's not all his fault. This team looks like, even despite getting the number 1 seed, they're kind of regressing to a middle-of-the-pack team because, let's see, before the round robin, I believe they were an 8 seed. No, I believe they were a 4 seed. Sorry.
Yeah, they were. And
they were second in the Metro, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe they kind of blew their wad in the round robin, and I think they played past their capabilities and got overvalued, in my opinion. I mean, I do believe Montreal can compete with this Flyers team. I don't think the Flyers team is as good as they are made out to believe. I
think you called Montreal. You picked Montreal, yeah.
I actually did.
I mean, let's not get crazy. It is still 1-1.
It is. It's still early, and, I mean, still plenty of hockey left. But, however, I do think when Carey Price is hot, this Montreal team isn't unstoppable, but they're pretty close to it.
They're playing with house money right now, and I think that's what the key is they're playing with house money. No one expects them to win. They were plus 200, almost plus 200 dogs in this. So, again, they're going to be shit on by people who wear Vancouver jerseys in podcasts every round of the playoffs they advance to. So.
Yep.
Well,
all right.
Pretty much every Canadian team, except for if you're
I just
Montreal
meant Spike
fan.
in general because he's wearing it. Vancouver. All right, so let's move into the Columbus and Tampa series. I mean, they've only played 2 games, and it feels like they've played 6. I don't love the fact that Tampa got thoroughly manhandled in game 2, and it took 2.5 games for them to squeak out a win in game 1. Columbus did this to them last year. It's just – well, I don't know if you say it Jonas or Junis or Eunice. Korpisalo is a huge problem because Tampa can't get anything by this guy.
Yeah, and let's not forget, this should be a 2-0 series for Columbus. If it wasn't for that absolute bullshit call on Foligno towards the end of regulation in game 1, the game never would have gone to overtime in the first place. So, Tampa Bay is alive by the skin of their teeth right now, and Korpisalo is a beast, an absolute beast in net for them.
So far he has been, yep.
So, yeah, and, obviously, what's his name? Is Stamkos scheduled to play anytime soon? He's still out?
I haven't heard anything, and the unfortunate thing is he had surgery right before the season stopped in an attempt to be ready for the playoffs. And obviously, if the playoffs happen at regularly scheduled time, obviously now we know that he would not have played. I don't understand the thought process of that. Apparently, it wasn't even that urgent of a surgery, and now it's kept him out of the playoffs even 5 months later. And I've said this, Token, with a guy like Korpisalo, with the no home ice advantage, the biggest thing is going to be a hot goalie. And if you can't get by him, you're never going to win a series. Sometimes home ice advantage can do things for you, but there's no fans in any of these stands, so there's no one cheering for anybody. So the Lightning, I don't know. I don't know if it was James who said it, that the Lightning aren't a playoff team. I'm not ready to make that declaration yet, but I might start to believe that. And again, I think if Tampa Bay loses this series, to get outclassed by John Tortorella twice in 2 consecutive years, John Cooper's got to go. And I don't want to say the sky is falling right now because it is only 1-1, and they have the ability to turn it on and put 5-6 goals into a net in a game, even against a guy like Korpisalo.
Yeah.
But to let this stuff happen to you by a team that, correct me if I'm wrong, they were the 9 seed in the play-in. They weren't even in the playoffs. They're not even a playoff team. Again, I know there were 12 games left, but if the season ended, they were not a playoff team. And you're getting manhandled by them. On the offensive side, it seems like they're a bunch of guys. I don't want to say they're an expansion team because they're not, obviously. I mean, but it seems like a bunch of guys. Duchesne left, goalie Bob left. You know, you got Nyquist, who did decide to stick around after all those moves they made. But they're not a team of guys, with the exception of like 2 or 3 guys that you want really. They're not stars. They're not impact players. I think Seth Jones is really good, and I think Cam Atkinson is really good. The rest of these guys are just complementary guys on any team, and they're finding a way to beat a team of stars. Hedman, Shattenkirk, Ryan McDonough, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point. They're beating a team of stars, future stars, maybe past stars. They're beating a team that's on paper and talent-wise far
with
better than them.
Players and
with role players,
Yeah, I mean, this Columbus team almost seems like a bunch of misfits that fit well together and have excellent chemistry. And when the goaltending's especially hot with Corpusella, they're going to be tough to beat. But
I
think
that's a huge part of it, obviously. But
yeah, I do believe Tampa Bay does squeak this one out. I think it goes 6 or 7 though.
I like your optimism. I just don't feel good about this Tampa team right now. And Game 3 spike is today. It actually, by the time we air, has already happened. So let's play a little clairvoyancy. If Tampa doesn't win this game, I don't even see them coming back in this series.
Ooh,
I mean, I don't know that I go that far. I will agree with you that if Tampa loses this series, John Cooper is fired immediately, like given the Gallant treatment where he has to take a cab from Toronto to wherever he lives. I'm
sure he lives in Tampa.
I would imagine, but hey, you never know. These guys
it could be in Toronto.
Money. Yeah, maybe he lives. Yeah, it's possible.
Maybe he's got a summer home. Yeah,
could live anywhere. I don't know. You're right that Tampa is loaded with talent, but they were loaded with talent last year, and Columbus swept them. So I think it's just Tortorella has Cooper's number as far as the matchups go, as far as the pairings go, and it's amazing.
He just outcoaches them.
And it's amazing this year too, because beyond Jones and Werenski, Columbus's defense is suspect.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about Werenski. You're right. He's a stud too.
Yeah, but beyond those two, none of those guys on that roster fill me with any kind of confidence.
I love the way Cam Atkinson plays, but you're right. On the back end, you're right. Their defense is not great. Yeah,
and that's specifically where I'm going with this. And I know Werenski got hurt at the end of the play-in series, and the fact that he's able to come back is good news for Columbus. But if he re-injures that or re-aggravates that, if he's out, then that's a
Columbus is in trouble.
For Columbus, yeah.
I do believe Tortorella is definitely one of the most underrated coaches right now, currently in hockey too.
Well, not to centralize this around me, but I do not agree that he's underrated. I think he's a fantastic coach. I was sad when the Lightning got rid of him after a few years after winning the Cup. Not that he probably still won't be there. He probably still wouldn't be there 15 years later. But I've always had a soft spot for John Tortorella. I think he's one of the few coaches that you see the passion and you see that he actually genuinely loves the game and loves the players. I mean, he obviously knows the game. Any coach who's gotten a job knows the game and knows the X's and O's. But he is just his passion, and you can tell he definitely goes to bat for his team, whatever team he's coaching at that point. I think he got a bad rap in New York with the Rangers, but that's a whole different story. All right, the last series in the East. This one, kudos to Spike and I. I think that you and I nailed it. If the Islanders can score 4 goals a game, they're not losing. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly what it's been. I believe it's been 4-2 and 5-2. Respectively in games 1 and 2. The Islanders have a 2-0 series lead, and Washington really just doesn't have an answer outside of Ovechkin for stopping this Islanders team and being able to compete with them.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead, Tucker.
You guys definitely did call this one right. I was on the complete opposite side of that. I still think Washington, however, still has a chance, but they got to play good defense and physical hockey, and I'm not sure if they're capable of coming back this year. So
I just think their goal scorers, Oshie, Kuznetsov, guys like that, Jacob Vrana, they're just not there so far, and it's been hurting them. I was impressed that they got out of the gate so early on the Islanders in Varlamov, scoring a minute into the game yesterday. But this Islanders team, they find. I'm actually shocked their ability to score 4 and 5 goals with ease on any team. I've watched enough Islanders hockey. I would say I probably watched them the third most behind the Knights and the Lightning. And I've seen this team, and I hope it doesn't happen with them because I have a few different action plays with them. I've seen this team be able to go into a 3 to 4 game stretch where they can only muster up 1 goal a game. So I'm really hoping that doesn't happen. As long as they're staying in this kind of mentality, they're the best team in the East.
Ooh.
I know I wasn't sure if I wanted to make that declaration. If they're playing like this, like these 2 games, they're the hardest out in the East.
Yeah, that's almost certainly true. But top to bottom, that's tough to give them that right now. But I see exactly where you're coming from. They are a difficult out. They are an unbelievable defensive team. And if the other team can't play defense, then that is a big, big problem. I love the way that the Islanders have been playing. I think, what's his name? Trotsky there has really gotten the Islanders up and ready to go playing against his former club. And he has their number. He knows how the Capitals play. And you wonder if it's just that the Islanders are better or if it's just the coach knows the Capitals so well that he's able to just put in the perfect formations, the perfect lines, the perfect matchups.
That could definitely be a possibility as far as an advantage. But, I mean, you want to talk about underrated. Token, you talked about Tortorella being underrated. I actually think a very underrated goalie in this league who's been a journeyman. I mean, he's been in Colorado. He's been in Washington, and now is with the Islanders. Is Semyon Varlamov. It's just everywhere you watch him play, he's always been a solid, dependable goaltender who just never really gets a lot of love, but he's really good.
Yeah, I mean, and even his backup's pretty decent. Grice.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't expect to see him in the series, barring injury.
No, I think as long as Varlamov's pretty damn healthy and all that, he's going to be starting between the pipes. So.
Yeah, but again, okay, maybe I'm not ready to crown. I said what I said. I still think if they're playing like this, they're a tough out. They're going to be a tough out for anybody as long as they're playing like this. But again, I've seen the flip side where, you know, they've had a 3, 4, 5 game stretch where they're struggling to get 1 or 2 goals, and they've got shut out in 3 of those. You know, it's they've had nights like that. They've had stretches like that. They can't afford for that to happen. Nobody can afford for that to happen in the playoffs anyway. So, all right, let's switch gears over to the West and talk about the Arizona-Colorado series. As we're recording right now, 2-0 Arizona or 2-0 Colorado, but Arizona is leading in the 3rd game. Arizona hasn't really looked like they've had the ability to keep up with them in the first 2 games. Obviously, like I said, they're winning the 3rd game 1-0. Spike, you talked about this. You know, this was the 2nd biggest favorite on the betting board as far as series prices. Just too young, too inexperienced, even with Taylor Hall and, you know, the cup-winning Phil Kessel. Is there any way Arizona can – I mean, obviously if they win this game tonight, which if they did, again, this recording and it being aired later is kind of tough. But if this series is 2-1, do you still believe that Arizona has a chance? And if it's 3-0, obviously we can kind of wipe this one aside.
Yeah, no, I think Colorado is too fast. They're too good
furious.
Defensively, too good. Oh, for fuck's sake.
I just wanted – you said it earlier in the show, and it went through my head. I'm sorry. To what? It just slipped.
The only reason Arizona is up in this game right now is that Colorado is playing very undisciplined hockey. They're taking unnecessary penalties. They are doing stupid things with the puck. And it's not actually Colorado hockey, or at least not the Colorado hockey that we've been used to seeing during the regular season and the current postseason. As much as I would like to see Colorado lose, because fuck Nazem Kadri forever, that guy is the worst. He somehow still hasn't gotten himself suspended yet, so that's
He's got a point in every game, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. So it's this game is more the anomaly. Even if Arizona wins, I don't think they can hang with this Colorado team at all.
Yeah, I agree with that statement. I mean, I think it might go to 6 at most, and Colorado might not even let it go past 5 games if they don't get the sweep. So,
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, you look at the first couple games: 3-0 Colorado, 3-2 Arizona. You could argue that game wasn't as close as the score indicates. You're right. Colorado's just too good for this team. But Arizona, like you said, maybe when they move to the Central Division here in 2 years, that could create a little bit of a rivalry right there with Arizona and Colorado being obviously close in distance. But if Arizona starts competing on a regular basis like they can this year, then might have a little rivalry brewing between those two teams. So
that would be nice.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting one to watch, especially with how good the Avalanche are right now and how good they can be a couple years down the road. Same with the Coyotes. I mean, a lot of good prospects in that organization right now that are shaping up pretty decently, and they're starting to build a little chemistry, and the goaltending is actually pretty good right now, and that's what's keeping them alive currently. So.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see it here in the next, or whenever the expansion draft is in 2 years or a year and a half or whatever, who Seattle goes for. We're talking about how Carey Price may or may not be available depending on his movement clause and how things go there. And I know that there's going to be probably some trading before that draft happens. But like you said, you got Darcy Kemper and Antti Ranta in Arizona. You're going to have a few different options in Pittsburgh if Matt Murray's still there with Tristan Jarry, Casey DeSmith, Matt Murray, et cetera. There's going to be some interesting spots with the goalies there, especially teams that have these 2 goalie tandems like they do. All right, moving into Calgary and Dallas. And I said at the last podcast, this would be the most boring series of all. And I have actually watched 2 of these games. And that statement holds true. With the exception of game 1 fight between Tkachuk and Corey Perry, which you called, Spike, this has been a little bit of a snoozer, in my opinion.
I don't know if I'd go that far. It's been not as exciting as some of the other games that are out there, but I mean, there's some bad blood between these two teams right now. So the games are a little bit chippier. I think we're seeing a little more intensity in these games than we are in some of the other series, like Arizona, Colorado. There's like Arizona's fighting on the ice, but they're not actually, hitting as much. They're not dropping the gloves. They're not doing those kinds of things that you would expect as a series goes along. Calgary and Dallas started that kind of action right away, right out of the gate. And you mentioned the Tkachuk and Perry fight, 11 and a half minutes into the first period of the first game, really kind of set the tone for the entire series. So I think all of the series have been interesting. Maybe you're right that it's the most boring of them all, but I'd still watch that over the NBA or MLB right now.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Let's not get crazy here. But so to me, Token Dallas has always been kind of a boring team to watch. And Calgary, I can't say I'm too invested in watching a lot of their games most of the time because usually they're either on while VGK's on or they're on while I'm doing something else. But the one Dallas win, honestly, again, it's a whole game, but the one Dallas win was really a Johnny Gaudreau fuck up. And we talked about that. Johnny Gaudreau has to get going in this series. We talked about that last week, but this isn't really what I had in mind for getting going, being the GOAT, unfortunately, of game 2. But that's the only reason Dallas even has a win.
Yeah, and I mean, the only thing I could think that Dallas can pull out of this is their goaltending is still good, and it's got to be better for them to even have a chance. And I don't see that happening.
It's true. It's going to be an interesting one. That series, we talked about it being an under series so far. It has held true in 2 of the 3 games.
Yeah.
So that one and Carolina Boston, James mentioned too, as the games where most of them will go under. So we'll see.
The first game, I'm surprised it stayed 3-2. I had the under of the game, and I was happy with pushing that one. So
I'm sure you probably had 5.5, I would assume, right?
No, it was at flat 5.
Oh, that's even worse.
Yeah.
All right, so Vancouver and St. Louis. We'll talk about this. Spike's wearing his Vancouver jersey, which is ironic to me considering Boston beat them in the Stanley Cup. Why he would wear that? But is that a blank Vancouver jersey or somebody on the back?
It's blank. And I've always had a soft spot for Vancouver back from
When
like
they tore
the
their city
94
down?
series. What?
I said when they tore their city down.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that too. No, I was thinking more of the 94 series where they took the Rangers to 7 games, and I was rooting hard for the Canucks back then because I wanted that, I never wanted a New York team to win anything. So having a team with like Pavel Bure, Trevor Linden, Kirk McLean in goal, like these are the guys that I really enjoyed watching, aside from the Bruins back in the 90s, but I really enjoyed watching Vancouver. So I've always had a soft spot for them, and I actually bought this when the wife and I went to Vancouver for a few days. So managed to find a shop that had, this is one of the authentic jerseys. They had it in with the replicas, so they had it priced like $100 too low. So I snatched it up as quick as I could.
Well, maybe you should start thinking about putting a number 53 Horvat on the back of that jersey. This kid is a beast.
Yeah, he's definitely looking pretty damn good, as well as Hughes for them. I mean, Hughes is a good two-way defenseman, and he might be one of the difference makers in the series.
I don't know. Spike, did you see that freaking shorthanded goal that he had yesterday?
Oh, yeah. That was impressive. That was good.
Not a lot of goals lately, especially how good defenders are. Not a lot of goals lately make me jump out of my seat. That one, wow! I even like wowed out loud when he did that.
Yeah. You sent a text, and I caught the replay of it, and then he ends up scoring the game winner in overtime.
Yes, he did. So, Spike, what are your thoughts on this series?
I mean, clearly I've enjoyed it because I bet Vancouver to win.
Mm-hmm. I think we all did, actually.
Yeah, the Blues are an interesting case for me because, as good as Jordan Winnington was last year, winning the Stanley Cup, he just hasn't had that same kind of magic this postseason. So, you got to wonder if they are definitively going to make the switch to, what was it, Allen, I think is the backup?
Jake Allen.
Jake Allen, who's always been there. It's one of those spots where you just don't know what the right move is. You either leave Binnington in to get his groove back, like we saw what San Jose did in the playoffs last year under Pete DeBoer, when they kept
Jones.
Jones in instead of going to Aaron Dell, and it paid off for him, and they made the conference final. But I don't know that St. Louis has that same kind of patience. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with their goalie situation. But I mean, the rest of St. Louis has to show up. I mean, they're putting up a couple of goals, but Markstrom's not that good of a goalie. Like, they should be putting up more than they are. Vancouver being able to shut them down is more a testament to Vancouver's defensive abilities and their ability to move the puck out of the zone rather than St. Louis really collapsing. But, like Boston, St. Louis was completely blanked in the round robin. So another strange situation in the West.
Yeah, and Token, he's right about Binnington. I mean, in the last 4 games, he's given up 17 goals.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the theory. The thing is the coaching staff has to guess right on this because as the defending champions, they look like a team who probably shouldn't have been in the playoffs this year as well. As the defending Stanley Cup champions, you're expected to really not get bounced in the first round. And that's the great question is when Allen struggled, they put in Binnington and the rest is history. But, I mean, you're right. Binnington, we all know, we've watched the ability for Binnington to be a phenomenal Jonathan Quick type playoff goalie. And going to Allen, yes, in the one game he played, he was better statistically. But down 2-0 against Vancouver, I think it's a team that can score like this. And another team I feel who, yes, they were a playoff team this year, but again, they, to me, didn't feel like they were on the cusp of competing quite this year with all their young guys, Besser, Horvat, Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, as you mentioned. They didn't really feel like to me like this was the year they were ready to compete for a cup. They're playing with house money, in my opinion, as well, like Montreal is, and it's up to St. Louis, really, again, down 2-0, to figure out what the right move is, whether it's to stay with Binnington or move over to Jake Allen.
I think the only way St. Louis going to come back is if they start Allen in game 3 and find out he is able to slow down this Vancouver team with all the pieces around him. I think if even Binnington stays in net between the pipes the rest of the series, even with a game 3 win, they still lose the series in probably 5 or 6.
It's interesting. I mean, like you talk about it, 2018 when Grubauer started the postseason and Holtby came in, and obviously the rest is history. Jake Allen's fallen out of favor, obviously, with – I wouldn't say he's fallen out of favor, but obviously he's a forgotten man in the Blues organization with the way Binnington played last year during the playoffs. This might be another chance to, one, help the team out, and two, maybe look good for him if his future's not in St. Louis. Because I think even if Binnington is not able to either come back in this postseason or do well in this postseason, I would imagine he's probably the starter for the Blues next year anyways. You're right. I think this is a spot. There's only 2 options, and I don't know if either of them are. I don't know if the first one's good. Either you go with Binnington, and if he gives up, 2+ goals in the first game or the first period, you pull him. I don't know if that's good enough with the way that St. Louis has been playing, or you just make the decision to go with Allen. If you make the decision to go with Binnington, Spike, do you have to kind of stick with him? Or is there a spot? You can't go down 3-0. You can't let Binnington give up 4 goals and you're down 4-0. You're like, hey, Jake Allen, go save us. You can't do that.
He's our savior.
Yeah, you let Binnington start game 3. If he gives up 2 in the first period or 3 over 2 periods, you yank him and you're done. You bench him for the rest of the playoffs. That's all you can do. You just hope that Allen keeps the game close in game 3, and then you build off of that from game 4 and you try to move on from there. But yeah, Binnington has to start game 3, but on a really short leash. You can't let him screw around and give up too many too quickly, because that's just, you're not doing him mentally any favors if you do that either, regardless of how the team reacts to it. You're not doing him any favors by keeping him in there and just letting him, the holes in the Swiss cheese growing bigger.
It's fair. It's going to be an interesting decision to see what goalie goes between the pipes in game 3 for St. Louis. All right, and the last series we have here is VGK and Chicago. So far it is 2-0. Chicago seemed to have a little bit more life in game 3, pushing the Knights to overtime. We all talked about this being another sweep or gentleman's sweep kind of game. Do we all still feel that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Chicago's good enough to get 1, but I think the Vegas Golden Knights are definitely the better team and aren't going to let what happened last year even close to happening again this year.
You know what? That's fair. I didn't even think about the revenge factor, despite it not being San Jose. I didn't think about that motivation. I didn't think about that. You're right. I mean, that's an interesting.
They don't even want to take a chance with it. If they even lose 1 game, they're going to just snap back to reality and be like, we got to play like it was game 1 again and start off with the lead.
That's something I didn't think about, Spike. That's a fair assessment, because the 3-1 deficit, the 3-1 they built last year, they definitely don't want to lose. They don't want to lose like that again.
No, for sure, especially to a team like Chicago that, quote unquote, wasn't supposed to be there. For me, it's been, and I hate to keep harping on the goalies, but for me, it's been all about Corey Crawford. And as good as he was in the play-in series, he has looked bad in the series against Vegas. I mean, really, truly bad. Given up probably, I can think of 4 soft goals he has given up in the first 2 games. He's just not things he should be giving up. He should be controlling the puck better. He should not be giving up rebounds. And remember, this is a Vegas team that has only had Pacioretty for 1 of these games, and I don't believe he's in the roster for tonight. I could be wrong about that. So
I don't think I think he's doubtful, or I don't think he's going to play. You're right.
Yeah,
I doubt he will play. Yeah.
I mean,
this is the game where if Chicago is going to win one, this is the game that Chicago has to win. Crawford has to play better. They have to score more. They have to put more pressure on Leonard, and maybe even force a change to Fleury. They have to do something that says Chicago is here and they're not going away, because right now they are scaring nobody. They're doing nothing. Crawford's a sieve. It's not looking good for the Chicago team right now.
Now, we haven't talked since the start of this series. Obviously, to the fans, based on what I've seen on social media, it was a shock that Robin Leonard was the starter for this series so far. And I know irrational VGK fans. I saw some posts on Facebook where when Leonard's skate got fucked up for the second time, they were saying that Leonard should be pulled and Fleury should be in. I'm like, what does the skate have to do with that? Anyways, you know how some VGK fans can be. I will say that, you know, despite the fact that we all probably agree that Leonard looked better, he did give up more goals in the round robin than Fleury did. It's just that St. Louis game was pretty rough. I have to say I was a little shocked that Fleury didn't start the series.
I wasn't. Not with the way that Leonard was playing at the end of the regular season. Even if he was, you know, even if it was questionable in the round robin, I mean, Leonard's just been.
I'm okay with it. I just don't know that I can't say that I expected it. I was a little surprised. I thought
if you had to make the call going in.
I thought if I would decide, I thought we might have a situation, a Grubauer-Holtby situation where Fleury starts, and if he's not good, you have Leonard.
At least.
Because of what Fleury has meant. And I know that doesn't mean shit to DeBoer. I get that. I am a little shocked that Leonard started the series. It's just no rhyme or reason.
I think he thought it was a better fit against his former team, Chicago. And
yeah, but I don't think you can go into the next series and start Fleury. I don't think you can.
No, Leonard's just been too hot lately, and I mean, he's definitely looking like a good fit with this Vegas team right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I have to look at the statistics to see who Fleury notoriously does well against that you would even consider, you know, who's left in the playoffs, because they're playing, Colorado and the winner of Colorado and Arizona. Or no, it's getting reseeded. I keep forgetting it's getting reseeded.
The reseed is going to screw
top
everything
remaining
up.
plays the worst.
Yeah.
So it's a potential they could play if everything as the series stood now held serve, they would probably play Calgary. And I don't know, you know, statistically if Fleury is good against Calgary, but I can't see a spot where he, you know, where DeBoer would do that. I think he would go with the hot hand. Again, it's just I'm just curious what that means for the future of the Fleury. This offseason is going to be huge. Fleury's making $7 and change million, has a modified no trade clause. Leonard's a free agent who definitely wants to be paid and played like a starting goalie. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about this, not much, but we've talked about the fact that although it might be difficult, Fleury is the one. And we talked about it, Spike, we talked about it with Sinbin. Fleury's probably the one who's got to go. Yeah,
for sure he's the one that's got to go. He's older, he's making more money, and, you know, he can be good, but when he's bad and it gets in his head, then he is a detriment to this team. Leonard seems more like the even keel. Now, again, he hasn't played that many games for Vegas since he came over at the trade deadline and in the postseason. But if Leonard's able to take Vegas deep into the playoffs, then, yeah, I think they have to start looking for a way to trade Fleury and just let him go and give that money to Leonard.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Sure. And worst case scenario, Leonard becomes a free agent and gets signed by the Sharks.
That is the worst case scenario. Yeah, you're correct.
Why'd you even put that thought in my head? Oh, you fucking asshole.
I mean, it's just so ironic how that would happen, and it would just be detrimental to Vegas even worse.
It is weird how in the Sharks-Vegas Golden Knights rivalry, how much this is the wrong word, but how much incest there is with DeBoer coming over here. If Leonard went over there, but like, I hate your guts, but I respect your players and your coaches, so we'll just take them. I know incest. I don't know the right word for that, but incest sound like it fit.
Such a bad word.
Is it though?
Yes.
All right. Well, we still got half a round of hockey left. We've got lots of hockey left until the Stanley Cup final. I'm loving everything about this bubble. I keep saying it. I think the production team, the NHL, is doing a great job with everything they're doing. And again, I've seen no real hiccups other than this TUUKKA RASK situation that we talked about, in the beginning of the show. So kudos again to the NHL. You guys are doing it right. Because I believe that there's a new thing coming down with the NBA that they're going to start letting the families in the bubble starting at the playoffs. So you're allowing 16 teams to have family members in the bubble. I just think that's a disaster waiting to happen. And I know that the NHL is doing it, but only in the conference finals with a lot less people, obviously. But this just seems like a disaster waiting to happen in the NBA.
Are they going to put plexiglass between the players and the families and have them at the top?
I don't know. You can't even
at this point, you don't want to risk it too much.
Well, they're already having NBA players leave the bubble and go to strip clubs. So, I mean, at this point, I guess.
And one I heard even dressed up a girl as like a player or something.
That was in the NFL. That was the Seahawks.
Oh, NFL, yeah.
That was pretty awesome, too. He tried to put Seahawks apparel on the chick.
Yeah.
Like, at that point, if you're already out of the bubble or out of the team hotel, just go rent your own hotel and have sex with the girl. I didn't understand sneaking her back. Like, that one didn't make sense to me, but that's a whole different bag of worms. So let's wrap it up here. Obviously, want to thank 12 Ounce Sports and Zingo TV for airing us both on their website and on the Zingo TV app. If you don't have the Zingo TV app, please download that today from your app store, or you can put it on your smart TV. If you want a free account, please use the promo code 120Z when you're signing up, and it is 100% free on your end. Also want to thank the sponsors here real quick. They've been running down the screen. We want to thank Vice Golf, Fanatics, DC4L Custom Tees, Wicked Cutz Jerky, Pro-Am Customs, which I sent you that picture token. I got my UCF Knights wedges in. They look pretty fucking badass.
They look very sharp, yeah.
I know. So if you want to check them out, obviously their Instagram page was down on the scroll that we had during the podcast, or you can check all of our sponsors out at lvsquares.com and click the sponsors tab, and it'll show you the list of all of our sponsors. Please support them. They support us, and we greatly appreciate them and you. What were you going to say, Toby?
Oh, they look very sharp, and I know you're waiting for them to play tomorrow. So
I'm playing tomorrow, so I'm going to use them because I've been using some pretty old, fucking thrift store clubs. Yeah. So, all right, for Token Tony, for Spike, I am Aaron. We appreciate you listening. Good luck on your bets, and we will catch you next time.